Good afternoon, guys. How are you? Hopefully, you guys had a really nice weekend and that you guys got your homework done all the way up through 47. I did change a little bit of the homework because 47 to 2008 were kind of long. So we'll do that later in this week. But I want to give you guys some notes today. So last time we took notes, we were dealing with the Syrian Mandate. And talking about how it was divided into these different religious ethnic groups and how each group was kind of fighting amongst each other. They really weren't truly paying attention to the fact that the French actually were in control. Because of this, eventually you were going to have all of them want to become independent and not be a mandate, but only one small section is actually going to be granted independence by the League of Nations, and that's going to be Alexandrite. Once Alexandrite gains their independence, all the other groups were going to be relatively upset because that's what they wanted as well. And again, remember, we had emphasized this whole entire time that these were religious-based groups. So this is then going to lead to all the religious elite leaders trying to get people together, forming their own different groups, and then trying to gain independence. So our religious elites want to gain independence, and one of the reasons way they do it is they impose this new type of law, which is called your Sharia law. It's based on actions and the words of Muhammad and the Quran. So anything that happened in the life and times of Muhammad, any actions that you would do, the way you would act, the way that you would interact with people, the way that you dress, that is going to be the base of this law, and that is going to be what everyone is going to try to emulate. So it is a way of life, not just a legal system, and it's going to include everything that's going to regulate your private life and also your public behaviors as well. One of the things that you see in modern day is that these laws cannot be interpreted. So these laws cannot bend or change because of changes in time or changes in activities or changes in social standing or social structure. These laws have to remain the exact same. So there's no interpretations of it. There's no variation of it. It is basically just, again, acting and living in the life and the times of Muhammad. So the laws are not going to be interpreted again by anyone. The laws are going to prohibit anything that is going to be criticizing the Quran, criticizing Muhammad, or criticizing Allah. So everything is going to be based, again, on this pure version of Islam. They do not believe that you can convert, so there are no conversions. They do not believe that women should marry outside of the faith, so only Muslim women can marry Muslim men, and they also are going to believe in polygamy. Now, this basic idea eventually is going to have a couple different offshoots to them. So our first offshoot is going to be Salafism. All right, so our first group is going to be Salafism, and it is currently going to be the fastest growing Islamic movement that we see in the world today. It predominantly is going to be among the Sunnis, and it is, again, the belief of religious and social conservation is going to be correct. And everyone is going to, again, try to return to the times of Muhammad and live in the original versions of Islam. It's going to be based on what's the three first generations of Muslim, which are also known as our pious predecessors. Again, it's going to be based on our three first generations of Muslims, which are known as our pious predecessors. Anything that's in the Quran, anything that's in the Hadith, and anything that's considered to be documented in actions of Muhammad is going to be considered to be correct. They reject anything that happens during the 7th and the 9th centuries, and that's going to be because that's where you see that split over who is the religious leader. So once you see the birth and the growth of Shiite, that's when you start to see that, according to the basic purest form of Salafism, that it is only going to be Sunni that is the correct version of the religion. So that's where you do see a split there. You are also going to see that there are three different types to it. The first type is a purist. Purists are going to focus on nonviolent methods to educate people about the correct form of Islam. The next one is going to be politicos. They're going to focus on converting the modern world back to the time of Muhammad through the government. And that's where you see today, when you look at some traditional governments in terms of in terms of Saudi Arabia, it is going to be the government that is imposing the Islam, and it's going to be making sure that Islam is followed correctly. You also have this last one, which is, again, controversial, which is your jihadists. Your jihadists are going to use violence or revolution in order to forcefully convert the world back to the purest form of Islam. There are differences between these groups, and basically the difference is how they are going to interpret their political content, and basically how much the government should be involved in order to achieve their ultimate goal. And again, it is not going to be something that everybody is going to believe in. They believe, though, that they want to create, all three groups want to create a unified Islamic state, and all three groups want the Sharia to be the basis of that state. So Islamic law is going to be enforced. All members, though, are not radical. So again, please don't think that everyone that is going to be a member of these groups are going to be terrorists, because they are not. All right, so in terms of the modern day version of this, so Salafism is the official religion of Saudi Arabia through Wahhabism. So Wahhabism is then going to be the base of the religion of Saudi Arabia, and it's sort of an offshoot. Easiest way to think about it is when you think about our Protestant religions, and we have all those different versions of it. This is sort of those different versions of it, but however, it's just going to be in terms of Islam. Part of the reason why this is going to become such a popular version and group, an idea, is because a lot of these people are going to be disenfranchised, particularly during with current situations with civil wars and current situations with refugees fleeing the Middle East and going to areas inside of Europe. They are disenfranchised. They're not accepted as true members of this new state. A lot of times they don't have citizenship, they don't have economic means, they don't have educational opportunities, and again, as a result of that, they're turning to something that is going to provide them with an answer, hopefully to improve their life, or also provide them with a base of where do I go from here. So it is going to provide them with that. You are also going to see that it is growing besides not just in Europe, but in China as well. The best known versions of these groups that we are all aware of and have heard in the news over and over again is going to be Al-Qaeda, and then you're also going to have ISIS as well. Again, very, very important to remember, mass majority of the people are just trying to live, work, have a good life, and go about their business. They're not really truly going to be involved in activities that are going to be seen as terrorist activities or activities that are going to be seen as hurting others. All right, so that is going to bring us to Wahhabism. And again, Wahhabism is the official religion of Saudi Arabia, and it is going to be something that is going to spread predominantly because of the pilgrimage, the Hajj, to Saudi Arabia in order to visit your two most holy sites of Mecca and also Medina. So basically, the idea here, the main goal originally was that they were going to go back to the original practice of Sunni and also try to convert all the Shiites. So again, we do have that clash between their two separate groups. All right, it's going to be founded by Muhammad al-Din Abu Wahhabi, who is going to stress the absolute sovereignty of God, and also, again, is going to reject the Shiite diversion. So anything dealing with Shiite is going to be bad. The main idea, again, is that the state is the extension of religion, which, again, is why Saudi Arabia is seen as protector of the two most holy sites, and Saudi Arabia also is going to be making sure that everyone is correctly following the religion. War is going to officially be declared against Shiites. War is going to be declared on anything that's going to be considered to be too Christian. In terms of activities that are going to be too Christian, what you do see is you have groups that are going to be Islamic groups that are going to start to honor Muhammad's birthday, so they're almost starting to worship Muhammad a little bit. There are some groups that are also going to be deviating away from the forbidden things, like dancing, alcohol, tobacco use, gambling. So they're blurring the lines a little bit, and as you see that stuff start to blur, again, some people are going to want to return back to the fundamentals of their particular group's beliefs. All right, by the mid-18th century, Wahhabism is going to dominate the Arabian Peninsula. It's also going to gain political control through the Al Saud family. The Saud family was a ruling family of Saudi Arabia, and they started to establish political control, but their control wasn't absolute. It was relatively weak, but actually combining it with Wahhabi, who actually did have a strong base, strong following, they're going to be able to solidify control of the country. All right, the British do realize that this version of Islam might have an issue with them, so they are going to try to gain control of the country, but they're not going to be able to remove the Saud family from power. they're going to have a series of people come in after they have this attempted coup that fails. So a series of British agents are going to come in, and they're actually going to befriend the Saud family after that. Basic reason is economic, as always, all things are. Basic reason is oil. We have already seen post-World War I the importance of oil. We saw it during the war as well. So now this is something that they want to be able to gain access to, and something that they want to be able to control. The only way the British can control the access to the oil is going to be through the Saud family. So that is why Great Britain is going to befriend Saudi Arabia. All right. You're going to see 1915, an Anglo-Saud treaty is going to be signed. Saudi Arabia then becomes basically an outpost of the British Empire, not controlled by the British. No public government is going to be set up, but what you are going to start to see is trading privileges are going to be established. In exchange for the trading privileges, Great Britain is going to provide additional military support if necessary, and also army supplies. In terms of modern day, the biggest thing that you see in terms of impact of Wahhabism in Saudi Arabia is it is an oil-rich country. And as an oil-rich country and an Islamic country, they're also going to be following their 5 pillars. And with that, it means that they need to give to charity every year. Again, annually, it's about 10%. But when you take a look at 10% multiplied by the wealth in the country, it becomes a significant amount of money. So the 10% that's going to be given in terms of charity is going to go to oil-poor Middle Eastern countries in order to establish either madrasas, which are going to be religious schools, or to establish rec centers that's going to provide, some food, some education, medical care, some basic things that people are not going to be able to get in that particular area and in that particular time. What you do start to see is that these madrasas are going to be teaching an extreme form of Islam. It is based on Wahhabism, but whenever you take a look at what is taught in Saudi Arabia compared to what is taught in these outposts, which are going to be like in Afghanistan and Pakistan, you realize that it is an extreme version. Saudi Arabia, form of Wahhabism, yes, you're supposed to convert Shiites, you're supposed to be going to war against them, you're supposed to make sure that you're not friendly with the Christians, but what you start to see in these small outposts is people are going to take this as a calling, that this is something that they need to do in order to protect their religion, in order to spread their religion, in order to protect their home. So these groups, these extreme people are eventually the ones that are going to be committing acts of terror, not only just in the Middle East, but around the world. So it's estimated that you have about $10 billion that's going to be funded by these groups annually in order to create new schools and new civic centers. And again, it is this idea of having one ruler, one authority, and one mosque. This is going to be the base of, again, Al-Qaeda and ISIS and also Boko Haram. All right, so that's the end of the first part, which is going to put 5th period or 8th period equal to everybody else. So everyone else, we are going to continue on with the new lecture.